My son-in-law shook my hand at his graduation dinner and told the whole table I was an embarrassment to the family name. What he didn't know was that the embarrassment had been quietly paying for the law degree he was about to celebrate. I'm 63 years old. I drive a 2016 Ford F-150 with a cracked side mirror I keep meaning to fix. My boots cost $42 at a farm supply store in Tuscaloosa, and I've owned the same black blazer since my daughter's high school graduation 9 years ago. I wore that blazer the night everything fell apart, and I'll probably wear it to her second wedding someday, if she'll let me. Her name is my daughter. His name was my son-in-law. And this is what happened when a man who assumed he knew everything discovered he didn't know the first thing about the person sitting across from him. My wife, Loretta, we were married 31 years, died of ovarian cancer in the spring of 2018. It took her fast. 14 months from diagnosis to the morning I sat in a hospital recliner, holding her hand while the monitor went quiet. She was 58 years old. She had a laugh like a screen door in a summer breeze, and she made the best sweet potato pie in 3 counties. And I have not had a single piece of sweet potato pie since she died because nothing will ever taste right again. What Loretta left behind, besides the grief and the empty closet and the coffee mug she kept on the left side of the cabinet, was a life insurance policy. $380,000. We'd been paying into it for 26 years because Loretta was practical that way, more practical than me. She grew up with nothing and she made sure we never would again. I was going to use that money to retire. I'd worked 34 years as a maintenance supervisor at Mercy General Hospital in Birmingham, started pushing a mop at 22, worked my way up to managing a team of 37 people and a $1.8 million facilities budget. Not glamorous work, but honest work, and I was good at it. I knew every pipe in that building, every breaker box, every supply closet. I knew which elevators ran slow in winter, and which drainage grates backed up after heavy rain. I knew the building better than most of the surgeons who walked through it every day. When Loretta died, my plan died with it. Not because the money was gone, it wasn't, but because of what happened in room 409. My son-in-law was a third-year law student at the University of Alabama School of Law when Loretta was in her final weeks at Mercy General. He'd been dating my daughter for 2 years by then. He came to visit twice, sat beside her bed, talked to her gently, asked real questions about her treatment. When the hospice team came in to explain what the next weeks would look like, he stayed in the room. He didn't flinch. He held my daughter's hand, and he held mine. The night before Loretta died, he sat with me in the hallway for 2 hours. I don't remember everything we talked about. I remember he brought me a coffee from the vending machine without me asking. I remember he said, "Sir, she knows you've been here every single day. That means everything." I remember thinking, this young man understands something. He understands that being present for someone who is suffering is the most important thing a person can do. That's why I did what I did. Loretta's policy paid out 4 months after she passed. I set aside enough to live on. The rest I put into a scholarship fund through the Alabama State Bar Foundation. The Loretta Vance Legal Education Fund, named for my wife, administered by the foundation so that the donor, meaning me, remained anonymous. The terms were specific. Recipients had to demonstrate academic promise, financial need, and genuine commitment to serving underrepresented clients. The fund would cover tuition, books, and living expenses. It was renewable each year based on academic performance and what the application called demonstrated professional character. My son-in-law was the fund's first recipient. He didn't know that. He never knew who the donor was. The foundation told him only that an anonymous family had established the fund in memory of a woman who believed in second chances and the law's power to protect ordinary people. Over 3 years, the fund paid $211,400 toward his legal education. My daughter and her husband got engaged the spring of his second year. They married quietly the following summer. Courthouse ceremony, backyard barbecue with maybe 40 people. I liked him then. I thought I knew him. But marriages settle into themselves, and people reveal themselves inside that settling. The first sign came at Thanksgiving, his second year of practice. He'd joined a corporate litigation firm in Atlanta. Good firm, serious money, and he'd started talking differently. Not the words exactly, but the weight behind them. The way he'd pause before answering a question from me, like he was calculating whether my input was worth the time it took to receive it. My daughter noticed it too, though she didn't say so then. I could see it in the way her eyes would cut sideways when he interrupted me at the dinner table. By his 3rd year at the firm, he'd been elevated to associate, had a new BMW in the driveway, and had started introducing me to his colleagues as my father-in-law. He works at a hospital. Not managed, not supervised, worked. Like I was still pushing the cart. I let it go. Loretta would have said the same thing. Let it go, Howard. People grow into their worst habits slowly and sometimes they grow back out again. The graduation dinner was his idea. He'd completed his Master of Laws degree, an LLM in tax law, a year-long program he'd done part-time while working, and he wanted to celebrate with family and colleagues. My daughter called me 3 weeks ahead, excited. He's renting out the private dining room at Thornfield, she said. Thornfield is the kind of restaurant that doesn't list prices on the menu, because if you have to ask, you probably shouldn't be there. Dad, he specifically said he wants you there. I was glad to hear it. I ironed my black blazer. There were 16 people at the table when I arrived. His parents, 2 partners from his firm, 3 colleagues, a law school friend, and various relatives on his side. I knew almost no one. His father, a retired cardiologist from Huntsville, shook my hand the way men shake hands when they've already decided you don't matter. His mother air-kissed my cheek and immediately turned to talk to someone behind me. I found my daughter near the bar. She looked beautiful and a little tense, the way she always looked when she was working hard to hold 2 worlds together. You look great, Dad. You look tired, sweetheart. She squeezed my arm. I'm fine. She stopped. Just be what? Just be yourself. You're always the most interesting person in any room. My son-in-law swept over in his new suit, dark charcoal, perfectly cut, the kind of suit that announces a specific income bracket before the man wearing it says a word. He shook my hand without quite meeting my eyes. Glad you made it. We saved you a seat. He said it the way someone says glad you place about a restaurant that was difficult to locate, implying the difficulty was somewhat the visitor's fault. They'd seated me at the far end of the table, between his aunt, who spoke exclusively about real estate values, and a junior associate from the firm named something I never caught, because he never introduced himself. Across the table, the 2 partners from his firm held court with his father. I sipped water and listened. The food was exceptional. I'll give Thornfield that. The bread alone was worth the drive. During the salad course, one of the partners leaned across and asked me how I knew the guest of honor. I'm his father-in-law, I said. I'm Dorothy's father. He nodded with polite blankness, the nod you give when information doesn't register as important. And what do you do? He asked. I just retired from hospital administration, I said. Facilities management, Mercy General in Birmingham. 34 years. Maintenance, my son-in-law said from 3 seats down. Loudly enough that the nearby conversations paused. He was smiling when he said it. Friendly smile, empty eyes. My father-in-law ran the maintenance department. That's not wrong, technically. It's just deliberately small. Important work, the partner said, with the tone people use when they mean the opposite. He turned back to his conversation. My daughter was watching me from across the table. I gave her a small nod. I'm fine. The main course arrived. Filet mignon, I think, though I spent most of it watching my son-in-law perform. That's the only word for it, perform. He was charming and sharp and funny, and he worked that table like a courtroom, reading each person, adjusting his energy, saying exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. I thought about the young man who'd brought me vending machine coffee in a hospital hallway. I wondered where he'd gone. Then his law school friend, a loud, wide man named something beginning with B, made a toast midway through dessert. To a man who pulled himself up entirely on his own, no family connections in law, no inheritance to fall back on, just raw talent and a scholarship that recognized what the rest of us already knew, that he was going to be somebody. Applause around the table. My son-in-law smiled modestly. I was lucky the scholarship committee found me. I've always said that anonymous donor changed my life. I set down my fork. You know, he continued, warming to the room's attention, I've thought about that donor a lot over the years. Whoever they were, they had the sense to invest in people with real potential. Not just anyone, people who could actually use an opportunity like that to build something. He glanced down the table. His eyes touched mine and moved on. It takes a certain kind of judgment to know the difference. I understood what had just happened. I'd been in the room for 6 months of his life. He'd been performing long enough that he'd started to believe his own mythology. Dorothy mentioned your scholarship paid for most of law school, I said. My voice was quiet. The table was loud enough that only the people near me heard. He heard. He turned. That's right. The Loretta Vance Fund, through the Barr Foundation. Incredible program. Loretta Vance, I repeated. Named for someone's wife, apparently. A donor who wanted to honor her memory. I looked at my daughter. She was watching me with an expression I'd never seen on her face before, something between confusion and a held breath. What was she like? I asked. The woman the fund was named for. He shrugged. I don't know much about her. Just that the family wanted to support legal education in her name. Typical donor story. He reached for his wine. Loretta was my wife's name, I said. The table near us quieted. He looked at me for a moment. Then he laughed, a short social laugh. Common name. Probably a coincidence. Probably, I said. I reached into the inside pocket of my blazer. I kept a folded copy of the fund's original establishment documents there, not because I planned to use them, but because I'd carried them for years the way some men carry photos, in case I ever needed to remember why I'd done it. I unfolded them slowly and placed them on the table. The Loretta Vance Legal Education Fund, I said, was established on August 14, 2018, through the Alabama State Bar Foundation. Initial endowment of $220,000, funded by a life insurance payout from Southern Heritage Life Insurance Company. Named for Loretta Ann Vance, who died March 29, 2018, at Mercy General Hospital in Birmingham. Nobody moved. The donor listed in the foundation records is Howard James Vance. That's me. I smoothed the paper with my thumb. Your scholarship wasn't from a pharmaceutical company or a law firm. It was from the insurance policy my wife spent 26 years paying into, money we saved so I could retire. The table was completely still. My son-in-law stared at the documents. His face had gone from polished to pale in about 4 seconds. He stopped. Room 409, I said. Do you remember that? November to 2017. You came to sit with her 3 times in the last 2 weeks. You brought her extra blankets because she said the hospital ones were thin. You explained her blood work results to me in the hallway because the attending wasn't available, and you could see I was scared. His jaw worked. You said something to me the night before she passed. You said she knew I'd been there every day, that it meant everything. I folded the documents. I believed you meant that. His father, the cardiologist, said, I don't understand what's happening. Your son received $211,000 in educational funding from my wife's life insurance policy, I said without any heat in my voice. He just told a roomful of people that Anyon wouldn't have been worth that investment. My daughter made a sound, just a small one. My son-in-law finally looked directly at me. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You saw a maintenance worker in a $40 blazer and you stopped looking. I picked up my water glass. I'm not angry, son. I'm just tired. He reached across the table. Sir, please. I wasn't trying to. What were you trying to do? It came out gentle. That surprised me. When you told that partner I ran the maintenance department. When you smiled when you said it. What were you trying to do? No answer. The room was so quiet. I could hear the kitchen sounds 2 doors away. My daughter stood up. Dad. Her voice was careful. Can we? I'm not making a scene, sweetheart. I'm just having a conversation we should have had a long time ago. My son-in-law's law school friend, the loud one, said quietly now, Is this actually real? The foundation can confirm it Monday morning, I said. I pulled out my phone and found the Barr Foundation's account portal. I turned the screen toward the table. The Loretta Vance Legal Education Fund, balance remaining, $168,600. Donor of record, Howard J. Vance. There are 6 other recipients currently enrolled. Your graduation wasn't the end of this fund. It's still running. My son-in-law's mother pressed her hand to her mouth. She was a remarkable woman, I said. I wasn't talking to anyone in particular anymore. She grew up with nothing, which is why she understood exactly what it meant to give someone a real chance. She believed in the law specifically because she'd seen what happened to people who couldn't afford it. She had a neighbor, Mrs. Eddins, who lost her house to a contractor's fraud because she couldn't pay for proper legal representation. That's why the fund has the requirements it has. Recipients have to commit to pro bono work. They have to demonstrate what the application calls genuine commitment to underrepresented clients. The two firm partners were very still. I looked at my son-in-law. Did you do the pro bono hours? A long pause. Yes. During law school and since? He didn't answer. The fund has a character clause, I said. Donors can't revoke retroactively, and I wouldn't try. The money was given freely. But I want you to understand something. I leaned forward slightly. My wife died believing she was investing in a man who understood that the law existed to protect people, not to sort them by the cost of their suits. I told myself I was honoring her memory by helping train that kind of lawyer. I stood up. My knee ached the way it always did in cold weather. I picked up my blazer from the back of my chair. I hope she was right about you. I'm just no longer sure I am. My daughter followed me to the parking lot. We stood under the orange light of the entrance awning for a while without talking. Dad, she finally said. I'm sorry, I should have said something sooner. I've been watching him and I kept thinking. You kept thinking he'd grow back into himself. She looked at me. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She was too much like her mother for that. Loretta never cried until everything was over. Yeah, she said. Something like that. I put my arm around her. She was shaking slightly, or maybe that was me. Hard to tell in the cold. He's not a bad person, I said. I don't think he is. I think he got comfortable and forgot to stay humble, and those are correctable conditions. Are they? I don't know. That depends on him. She drove me to my car. We sat in the parking garage for 20 minutes talking about her mother, which is what we always did when things got hard. It helped. It always helped. On the drive home to Birmingham, my phone rang 4 times, his father twice, his law school friend once. A number I didn't recognize. I let them go to voicemail. The call I did take was from a woman named Janet Okafor, the fund's program officer at the Alabama State Bar Foundation. She'd gotten a message from one of the firm partners who'd apparently looked up the fund online after leaving the dinner. Mr. Vance, she said, I heard there was quite an evening. You could say that. I want you to know the foundation has already received 3 inquiries tonight about the Loretta Vance Fund. People wanting to know how to donate to it. I hadn't expected that. Also, she said more carefully, I received a call from your son-in-law. He asked about the pro bono commitment tracking. Whether the foundation keeps records of hours after graduation. What did you tell him? That we do, and that we notice when they drop off. A pause. He asked if there was a way to catch up. I didn't say anything for a moment. What did you say? I asked. I told him the same thing I tell every recipient who calls with that question, that the work doesn't care about his timeline, the clients do. I thanked her and drove the rest of the way in quiet. The next few weeks were uncomfortable in the way that honest things usually are. My daughter told me she'd started seeing a counselor alone first, then with her husband. She wasn't sure where it was going. She wasn't ready to decide. His father called me on a Tuesday morning, from Huntsville, and this time I picked up. He didn't apologize exactly, but he was measured and direct in the way that surgeons sometimes are when they've processed something fully and are reporting their findings. I want to be honest with you, he said. We knew he had that scholarship. We never asked where it came from. We assumed someone significant. I think we told ourselves that because it was easier than asking the right questions. A pause. That's not an excuse. My son called me after the dinner. He was in bad shape. Not because of the money, because of the room 409 part. Another pause. He remembered her. I didn't respond. He said she used to ask him about his family, and he would tell her, and she would listen like it mattered. He said he hadn't thought about that in years. His voice shifted, just slightly. He's been thinking about it since Thursday. Good, I said. Just that. 30 days after the dinner, a letter arrived from the Alabama State Bar Foundation. My son-in-law had registered with the state pro bono program. 20 hours committed in the first month. A family in Decatur facing eviction. A veteran contesting a benefits denial. A woman in Tuscaloosa whose landlord had stopped responding to repair requests and who'd been told she had no options. She had options. She just needed someone who remembered where the law was supposed to come from. I don't know yet whether my daughter will stay in her marriage. That's her decision, and I will love her and support her either way. She is the best thing Loretta and I ever did, and nothing changes that. What I know is this. My wife spent 26 years making sure that if something happened to her, I would be taken care of. And in the end, I decided that what I needed most wasn't a comfortable retirement fund. It was to do something with her memory that she would actually recognize, something that looked like her, practical and generous and completely unconcerned with who was watching. A few months ago, I went back to Mercy General, not to work. I'm retired now, finally, but to speak to a group of residents and nurses as part of a professional ethics series the hospital had started running. They asked me to talk about what 34 years in that building had taught me. I told them about Loretta, about room 409, about the man who sat with me in the hallway the night before she died and brought me a vending machine coffee without being asked, about what that had meant and what I'd chosen to do with it and what had happened afterward. Afterward, a second-year resident came up to me. She was young, maybe 27, exhausted the way residents always are, with a calm steadiness behind her eyes that reminded me of the doctors I'd trusted most over the years. "Mr. Vance," she said, "I'm one of the Loretta Vance Fund recipients. I've been receiving the scholarship for 2 years. I didn't know who the donor was until tonight. I didn't know what to say for a moment. I work pediatric oncology," she said. "I've thought about your wife, whoever she was. Every single day I've been in that ward. I didn't know her name until right now, but I've thought about her." She looked at me steadily. "Thank you for telling me who she was. I drove home on I-65 with the windows down even though it was October, and too cold for that. The kind of thing Loretta would have scolded me for. I left them down anyway. She was right about a lot of things, my wife. She was right that the work matters more than the title. She was right that you don't actually know a person until you've seen how they treat someone they think can't do anything for them. She was right that money is just money, that what you do with it is the only part that sticks. And she was so right, that a person who truly understands suffering never forgets what it cost.